Is it now?
Yeah. Yep.
Got a question coming in. Report. Yeah. And how old are they? 5 years. Okay. 5-year-old raspberries. Okay. They haven't been pruned. We've done no selective pruning.
Just
okay. Our amount of this is tricky for me because my left ear is I have a bad hair in my left, so I'm
okay.
Really muffled.
If it's a problem, I can just turn it off.
Okay.
It is, but if it's too annoying for you, it's
just a little disorienting.
Yeah, feel free to take it out if you need. There's not that many people on Zoom.
Can I put it in my left ear?
It probably won't like fit, but you can try.
Let me try it. Hold on, folks. I'm just gonna try putting this. Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's okay if you want to.
That's all right. I can do it.
Okay.
Because we're going to talk about planting density and the other group, right? Yeah. So planting density, the cane density for raspberry should be 4 canes per square foot. Oh, so you got to thin it out. Thin it out a lot. Yeah. And try to make rows to get air movement.
I always thought before I knew anything, I was like, are they growing a bush? Like it's supposed to be a bush. No,
they're canes. They're canes that, yeah. Okay, great. You're welcome. Okay, so folks, my name is Laura McDermott, and I'm the berry specialist in Eastern New York for another week. I work with commercial fruit and vegetable farmers in the 17 counties along the Route 87 corridor now. And we're talking about integrated pest management and fruit. And one of the biggest things that we work with North America actually invasive fly that was cane hair right for the last 13 or so years, it just made berry production quite challenging. The difference between a spotted wing Drosophila and a native Drosophila, there's lots and lots of native Drosophila species, is that the spotted wing has a very rigid deposit. So they're going to lay eggs perfectly intact, fruit that's fairly ripe. Whereas a native has to have a broken or an overripe fruit for its little wimpy ovipositor can actually penetrate the egg. That makes it a game changer for fruit production, right? Very challenging. The other challenge with it is that it can go from egg to adult in a week or less, 5 to 7 days. In temperatures like this. And warm nights are even harder, so that is becoming increasingly challenging. So what we do, and we've learned along the way, started out going sippo about this insect and had to kind of figure out what attracted them, what were they eating, how are they operating. And we did do a lot of work with lures, trying to attract them so that we could at least tell if they were there. Because we didn't know if they overwintered, which they kind of do, but not really. If it's super cold, they do get killed by hard winters. But if they're like this winter, they overwintered quite well. They have a winter stage, kind of a winter morph, they call them. They have the pupae, they have an egg, several instars in the egg, and the larvae of the larvae. So we use these different traps to monitor the arrival of the pest. This is what we call a drowning trap. The insects, there's a lure hanging there. The insects enter through those little holes and then get drowned in the water, can't get out. And then we weekly come and monitor them by pouring them through this sieve-like material. And then we take them back to the lab and look at them under a dissecting scope to count to make sure. That is a lot of work for a farmer, right? They're not going to do that. So then we brought sticky traps onto the sink. And the sticky traps also have this impregnated kind of pouch of this steamy, vinegary, gross smelling stuff that attracts the insect. Unfortunately, none of the traps either can't use them. Just I'm going to show you really nice small groups. I'll try to show you an adult male, which is mostly what we see on these. And you can get good at finding them. See where my finger's pointing? The spots are on the wings at the end of the wing. Do you see that? It's tricky. Yeah, very small. But that's what we're looking for. I'm kind of pointing right at it there. You do have to look quite closely. And I have an optivisor, but when I've had people use it before, the optivisor is more problematic. It's helpful. But so it's a tiny little pointing out there, the dark splotches on the end of the wings. You see it? So that's what we're looking for.
I assume it's the larvae that do the damage.
The larvae inside the berry does the damage to the berry. And the larvae, just as it's going through its larvalicious stages, it just moves around and destroys the cell walls of the fruit, and the fruit starts to collapse and melt, and just it becomes, not worth selling. So what we do then is, after we've identified that the insect is in the neighborhood, basically, or in the area, then we tell farmers that as soon as their berries start to ripen, any blush, then they have to start taking control. And there's different things that they can do for control. They can cultural controls like weed management. Some people are using landscape cloths to try to reduce the humidity around the base of the plants, because these insects settle at night. And so they're settling down because they like that high humidity near the ground. So the landscape cloth helps with that. That helps control weeds. Also keeping a lower density, stripping the lower parts of the canes of leaves. Anything you can do to improve air movement and lower humidity in the canopy is a cultural way of control. Another cultural method of control is to pick, like every day, pick. As soon as they have looked ripe enough. But that's got its problems too. First of all, it's very labor intensive. And secondly, sometimes we're picking things not fully ripe. They're ripe to look at, but they don't have the sweetness that they look for. So that's discouraging. Lastly, the chemical control. We use organic chemicals. We do have conventional insecticides. But in order to work around this 1 week from adult to adult, it needs a weekly spray. So that's really challenging for many growers, because they have a few pickers in there. These insecticides have to have a certain days to harvest. It's just really problematic. And nobody likes to spray. Farmers especially don't like to spray. So it has been a real challenge. And when this was first identified, I would say 80% of the growers I work with rip their raspberries out. Raspberries are the primary target, but certainly not the only target. Blueberries, strawberries, any soft fruit will get infested, but raspberries especially. And so we saw a lot of people just say it's not worth it. We're just getting rid of them. But now we're trying again because they've seen some success with control. We had a couple of really good years when it's dry. It's a great thing. When we have cold winters, it's a great thing. But when we have a super bad combo of a wet year followed by a really warm winter, we have high numbers this year, plus an early season. So everything is earlier and things are getting infested already. So how we can tell if we're doing anything that would be helpful, if we're having success with our control measures, we do a saltwater flotation test. So we go and pick 30 to 50 fruits, put them in a saltwater bath, and see if we have larvae. And there, unfortunately, are larvae in this fruit.
What is it called again? What's the name of it?
Spotted wing Drosophila. Spotted wing Drosophila. It's a fruit fly, a naturally occurring fruit fly. And so there are a few little larvae, not too many. The fruit still looks pretty darn good.
So they make their way out of the fruit in the salt water?
Yeah, they try to get away from the salt water starts impregnating the fruit, and they're trying to get away from that.
Do you offhand what ratios?
It's a cup of salt to a gallon of water.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah, it's very easy to do. Using a black background is helpful. some of those takeout dishes with the plastic top, that works great. That's a really good thing for farmers to use. You know,
So if you're in your home garden, you have like wood and you pick up.
Protein.
Oh, Mandy, I was starting to figure this out. Yes, totally fine. They're not toxic, but they're problematic when they start getting out of control. It will cause a lot of loss. And in the initial, when we didn't know what was happening, the first couple of years, I mean, growers weren't taking these precautions, and so they were selling fruit that looked okay to them, and they weren't saying to their customers. The other thing you can do is immediately put the fruit in a refrigerator as close to 32 degrees as possible, because you can kill larvae and even eggs if you're close to 32. But even a regular refrigerator will slow the larval instar development, which also is helpful because it keeps the larvae small. So all of those things, every part of that is important to management. So yeah, and that's kind of spotted wing Drosophila. So the other thing we do, we've worked a lot with exclusion netting. Exclusion netting for insects has been commonly known for things like leafhopper and tarnished plant bug and beetles, all kinds of things. You know, they use it for in vegetable gardening and farming and organic farming a lot. The difference with this guy is that you really have to put it on for as soon as flowering finishes, so pollination can happen. You put the net over it like in a little room, and then you let the berries ripen, and you go all the way through harvest with this on, so that you don't get any infestation. It works beautifully. It's not inexpensive, but it also keeps birds out, it keeps hail out, keeps rain out, high winds. It's very, very effective. And anytime you grow under a protection, whether it's plastic sheeting from like a high tunnel or this net, when the light comes in, it gets refracted. And what happens then is it kind of bounces around the plant, and it gets the lower leaves, underneath the leaves. You get much better light distribution. So the plants grow great under tunnels or under plastic. I mean, really beautifully. The leaf size is larger, the plants are taller, the fruit usually is larger. So there's a lot of benefits for exclusion netting in general, but it's not inexpensive, and it is a little troublesome to put, you know, your structure up, build your little room around your fruit. But it does guarantee that you can manage without insecticides, which is great. The last thing that we're doing, and we're just starting it after several years of quarantine and then another 5 years of research, is introducing predators and parasites. So Hannah and I were present when they released some at a farm in the region. And these little wasps, which are imported from Asia, they are coexist with the Drosophila in Asia. And so they were identified, brought over, raised, apparently very difficult to raise in labs, but they're getting there. And now the thing is to let them be at these different sites and try to track how much, are they developing their own population, and then after that they'll try to figure out if they are having an impact on the local numbers of Drosophila of spotted wing. So it's pretty interesting, but these are long-term solutions. It takes a long time to get to this point. It's a little frustrating sometimes, but we've made a lot of progress. And in some years we have very light. 2 years ago when we had that drought, very light Drosophila. It was amazing. We really was like, wow, maybe it's solved. Maybe it's gone away. But no such luck. This last year was back with a vengeance as soon as the rains and the humidity increased. Yeah, and so every pest is slightly like this. Every integrated pest management thing is slightly like this. This is a particularly bad one. But the shorter the life cycle, the trickier it gets. And usually by having a longer life cycle, you have a better opportunity of nipping it in the bud without it being such a headache. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
So other than the fruit fly, what are the primary pests that home gardeners would be dealing with?
So I think the
Fungal
biggest
diseases,
things for
maybe,
home
or-
gardeners are birds and deer. I
Well,
really
but those
do.
are solution things. They're just not like our, I'm
Like
thinking
an
maybe
insect
fungal
disease.
diseases or
Um,
other insects.
I think tarnished plant bug, if you're a strawberry grower, is pretty tricky. Um, we have uh, we have some really good thresholds for that. We also have some naturally occurring fungi that will go after tarnished plant bugs, but then we have some later varieties that people are growing, like the day neutrals. They're very problematic day neutrals because they fungus that attacks the early season of the tarnished plant bug. But not this much in the summer, it's hot, so that tarnished plant bug. It's a lygus bug that's a seeder. That's pretty tricky. You could use a barrier method like a grow cover to screen it out. I mean, rotating crops, soil-borne disease is really problematic for growers. I think that most homeowners know enough to move their plants around and do the best they can, and that usually is quite good. Botrytis and some common things, most of it is like you just have to get out there and pick a lot. You know, you really have to try to not to put your poles right in the walkway or something. Because if you have a moldy berry, you just throw it on the ground, spores are still infesting other.
So same with my piggy plant, because I think that's probably something that people don't know.
Yeah, harvest is really important, primarily for disease management. Spiderwing is an unusual example of an insect one where you have to do a lot. But anytime anything sporulates and you get an infection, the more it sporulates, the more infection you're going to get. So you want to be there taking off the ripe fruit. And berries are particularly challenging because there can be so much ripe fruit and you don't eat it all at one time. So it's a disincentive for going out and just picking everything. Because wouldn't it be just great to just pick what you need, right? But one of the things that I try to tell growers, and I think this might be a great example, I have a feeling that they could probably profitably get away with half to a third of this number of plants. They overplanted because buying plants is cheap and easy and putting it in is cheap and easy, and you know, why not? And I think growers are so worried always about not having enough when the demand is there, so that they really overcompensate. But if they cut this field down to half and netted it, they might be able to have a lot more profitable fruit for the people that came to pick. So that's just a thought that maybe we could scale back and manage more intensively a smaller amount.
Do these have a problem with it? No.
Yes. Can we see it? Well, it's right here.
Oh,
How
what does
much
it do to the berry though?
It doesn't do a lot to the berries because they don't have a big infestation right now.
Oh,
So the berries are pretty good right now. But
what is it? It makes it fall apart.
it has a little tiny larvae. Like it's like less than an eighth of an inch long, like a 16th of an inch. And it's a little tiny white larvae that as it moves around in the berry, it destroys the cell walls, so it causes them to kind of melt. Yeah. And this farm tries to do things very environmentally friendly. So they're probably using an organic pesticide alternately with a conventional pesticide. I'm not positive of that, but I think that that's what their strategy has been. The organic pesticide is pretty good, not the best control, but they feel like they are, you know, it's just a better way to go about it. It also helps, I mean, because it's a great way to prevent resistance from either chemical. So that's helpful.
If you were to strip some of these canes, like how much could you get away with?
About a third of the way up.
Or-
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty good.
Their cane density too is a little bit heavy, not terrible, but
Yeah.
in some areas it's a little heavy. They should probably remove some of them. But again, the labor to do that is so it's such a lot, right? It's so much.
That's why raspberries are expensive.
That's why it's so expensive. Exactly. So Yeah, it's just a real conundrum. I was telling the other groups about, oops, this gave me a like.
Yeah, that's okay.
Um, other pricing thing, I'm trying to figure out, but hot topic, but, talking about, how they honest, kind of 40,000 acres of strawberries. Cost of production is $12 a plant. That's the cost. That's how much it costs them to produce a plant is $12. They are selling them for $8, and they're lucky to get $8 because sometimes there's been whole tractor trailers just sitting at the Hunts Point market and no buyer. So we just are flooded with strawberries, which drives our price down at the grocery store, and that's the guy that's breaking it back with the strawberries. They're vulnerable to all the pushback from consumers, and I get it. It's not the Peter family, but it is also really nice to grow food, and it is.
And not enough people know that.
Yeah,
They just think it
really
comes from the
hard.
grocery store.
This is just one half of a classification of fruit. I mean, some of these guys are growing 60 different, it's really challenging. I don't know how they do it, quite honestly. I am humbled by their expertise. It's really amazing. And their optimism too. It's really, really discouraging at times. But it's, agriculture is fabulous to work with. Gardeners, fabulous too. Understanding this complex systems are really, really cool. So kudos to you guys.
I have a question about the netting. Is it kind of standardized? Like if you look up, what would you look up? Exclusion netting, but specifically for this pest, can you trust that it will be the right size?
That's a great question.
And also, what sizes does it come in?
Those are great questions. So there are several different manufacturers of exclusion netting, and there are several different grids. You want to get the 80 gram for this pest specifically, a very small hole. So it's what they call an 80-gram netting, which is one of the small, I think it's the smallest. And it does come in different sizes. The Berry Protection Solutions is the company that I've worked with, the manufacturer and the farmer that was, we worked with University of Vermont. We have great videos about how to construct this. And that's the Berry Protection Solutions. If you Google that, that's the woman that has worked a lot. She's in Steventown, Dale Isla Riggs, and she does sell it. There are other companies that sell things that would also be effective. I know the Brookdale Fruit Farm in New Hampshire sells a great netting. There's another supplier, Knott's Berry Farm in Pennsylvania.
Could you use Remay if you have it for your vegetables?
An aspect.
You can use Remay. It will exclude it. The problem with Remay from a construction perspective, A, it cuts out a lot of sun, more sun than this does. And B, it's not strong enough. Like if you put it over a structure like this, it would rip. So it's, I do have growers that have used these kind of modified, things for, they took them out of tobacco production, and they're like shade cloth. And it's okay for a small, you'd probably be able to get away with it, but over time, if you used it year after year, your plants, I think, might start to look bigger. They don't have enough sunlight. So that's one of the problems with all these alternate forms of netting. And the netting that Berry Protection Solutions, now they've added zippers, like great big tent zippers, so you can add on panels depending upon the size of, you get it. You can custom ask for your length. They can cut that, but the width I think is 12 feet panels, and then
So
you
that
can
it can
zip
go
them together.
over.
Yeah, it has to go up and over. So even this smaller thing might required 2 mils. And it has to go down as far, you have to be able to weight it on the, but you can't just put it like almost to the ground, you have to go all the way to the ground. It's, it has every little opening has to be excluded. She has a portico. She's really like an entryway, so you feel like you're going into Fort Knox. There's this entryway, you zip yourself in, and then you zip yourself into the planting. But her berries, she does have you pick. If you ever want to go look, her berries are phenomenal. The blueberries are humongous, and then that they just are responding really
think last time.
the net. Yeah. You put it away and for the winter after harvest, you roll it up. Put it, she stores it right there outside. She wraps it with a plastic cover to protect it. And
Does she have it on hoops or like a frame?
yeah, sometimes it'll sit on the frame. Sometimes they put it on the ground, but the frame is better because you put it up because the rodents don't get into it.
Yeah.
Rodents don't actually like to chew on this as much as like Rime because it's not as cozy. It's like more rigid.
That's good.
Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, is it like a PFC wood? Like what is she constructing?
Oh, her construction. So the netting that they don't sell you a kit,
Right.
and they don't sell you the structure. But she tried. We tried both wooden and steel poles, and the steel poles definitely work better.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
like conduit for electrical conduit?
hers are a little bit heavier.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, but you could probably get away with conduit.
But that's with a
because
big area though, right?
Yeah, she's in a very windy spot. So
Okay.
the other problem, like it's anything, once you know, wind does go through, but it doesn't go through very easily. So she's in a really windy spot. So it's pushing on it. It's structure. And she's covering almost 2/3 of an acre with this. So it's a big planting. So it's other places that I visited that have the netting, they're more sheltered and they don't have the same stressors of winds. Like here would be a tricky place, right? Because of this wind. So system, and I think because of the bird control too, if you don't have to worry about spotted wing, you don't have to worry about birds. The game changer. Yeah. So it's the berry patch. It's on Route 22. I would strongly encourage you to go and pick there this season if you think you want to look at a system. Kind of check it out, but look at what has happened in that.
What town is it in? I'm sorry.
Steventown. Yeah, it's a really nice example of what time. Do you have any other questions? You guys are pros for doing this. This is a long day of educational information. So good for you.
Beautiful day.
Yeah, we lucked out, right?
Yeah, we did.
I was at a workshop and Dutchess County when it was 100 degrees. It was brutal. But that one was a cool one because we were looking at robots, robotic leaders. That's what's coming down. Robotics. I'm very excited for that. I think it's going to be, these are little autonomous things which farmers can actually build themselves. And so the programming is the real problem. It's trying to program them and get a signal because it has to have a signal, of course. So there's a couple of barriers to success, but we're getting there. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Any
Mark.
other questions? Happy to answer them, but
Who will be taking your place when you retire?
I'm sorry. Heather Case has been hired. She's going to start on Monday, and she's going to be based out of the Hudson Valley lab because she lives in New Paltz, so that worked out good. And she has a background in entomology, and has worked for a company called BioBeat. So she's got a pretty good background with predators, parasites.